This is you, looking sharp, and you have 8 to 15. Oh, hey, everybody. Here's the cool part. They have 8 to 15, too. Now that's what I call world change. Let's see it in action.
I'm Junior Esqueda.
And I'm Rita Esqueda, his wife. We've been coming to 7 for 3 years already. We call this our home.
So a buddy of mine, Greg Brendel, who works with me, we were in a conversation one time and I brought up God and we were talking about church and he seemed pretty open to it and I invited him.
He invited me to come to church quite a few times, but because of things in life that were going on, I didn't feel that it was time for me to start going to church, which I was obviously wrong about. Finally, things just got to a point where I was really down and he would talk to me every day about it and finally asked me to come to church that one last time, and I came by myself. I didn't bring my wife with me. And it seemed like I was being talked to by Tom. And I went home and I talked to my wife. I told her, look, I know we've been having issues. I think this might help. And she came back with me the next week and we've been coming ever since.
Since we've been coming to HCC, I think that it has strengthened our marriage completely and our family as a whole.
I was invited by Junior Esqueda. I finally just gave in and went to church, and it completely transformed me. Just by Junior inviting me to church, it just changed the way I am, the person I am. I saw a buddy of mine, Andrew Baez, going through some problems, so I invited him to church.
I'm Andrew. This is my wife, Erica. I work with Josh, and he's kept talking to me about church and going to church, and I always told him, yeah, I will, and then never really happened. You know, one day she said, let's just go, see how it goes, and we've been coming back ever since then.
To us, it's real important that our oikos knows the Lord. You might be the only Jesus that they might see, and I think it's real important to be that godly example.
Mm-hmm.
This is Junior and Rita.
This is our world. This is our family. These are the people God's placed in our lives.
Speaking of people God has placed in our lives, yeah, for the last few weeks, we've been in and out of Phoenix for a very, very good reason. Grandchild number 6. Thank you. Appropriately named, I believe. That's right. That's right. So we raised a son, our only begotten son. He found a beautiful wife named Tegan. They live in Phoenix. But Drew's a fan, if you haven't figured that out, and just pray for them. They're getting acclimated as new parents. Their role is as new parents. This is their firstborn, so we're really excited about them. Won't be around Ace quite as much, I think, Cheryl and I, as we are around the high desert variety of Mercer grandchildren, but we're blessed with all of them and are glad that little guy's a part of our lives. We have number 7 due in San Diego in the spring, and then I think Ace is going to get a couple of siblings from Ethiopia next year sometime. So we are so busy and so broke. I have to tell you, life is good. Well, welcome, High Desert Church. Good to see you again. Victorville, always great to be with you. Apple Valley and Phelan, we're blessed that you join us on a regular basis as well. If you did not get a copy of the outline when you walked in the auditorium a little while ago, raise your hand up high and our ushers will find you. We are in this emphasis on the family this year, starting to land this year-long celebration of family. We began in January by talking about God's family and how blessed we are to be a part of God's family as believers. And then we spent an extended season talking to you about our immediate families and what immediacy means in terms of living in a family, living under the same roof with the people that you call family. More recently, we have been analyzing church family, what what it's about, being a part of a local church family, and then now we want to talk about those 8 to 15 really good reasons we all have to wake up every morning, because God is changing the world through us as He brings into our lives 8 to 15 people, some of which might be a part of our forever family. Others might be a part of our immediate family. Some others might actually be a part of our church family. But nevertheless, those people that God has, for whatever series of reasons, moved onto the front burner of our lives because we're engaging them on a regular basis and having the opportunity to do kingdom work, impactful kingdom work in the lives of those 8 to 15 people. Now, part of changing the world, in fact, the first step in changing the world is framing the world, framing your world, which is why we encourage you on a regular basis to have at your disposal an Oikos prayer card through which you pray every day for each and every one of those 8 to 15 individuals. Now, in that group, on everybody's list, is a subset of Oikos personnel who are difficult. They are just difficult people. They're hard to live with, they're hard to deal with. It's not easy, it's not convenient at times, but God has placed them in your life, just like He placed all of the others that might be more easily engaged. And so we want to talk about what it means to have difficult people in your life. Now let me define a difficult person for you. A difficult person is someone you wish God would move onto someone else's Oikos card. But I'll tell you, that's not going to happen probably, because for whatever reason, you are better prepared to reach that individual, that group of individuals, than others would be. Or else God would move them onto someone else's Oikos card. And I want to say, before we get into the text today, I want to say that we are not just talking about a few individuals on everybody's card. Every one of you have the capacity to be a difficult person. In fact, you are very difficult. In fact, turn to the person next to you right now and just repeat after me. Ready? Turn to him. You're difficult. Just say that. Okay. Now, not only did you say that, some of you guys meant that. That's amazing. Not only did you say that, but watch this, you also heard that, because the other side of that formula is true as well. We're not just describing a small group of God's people or your people, we're describing all of us, because we all go through seasons when we're difficult. It might be a bad day. We might be having a moment. It might be a season of transition. It might just be that life has gone sour and we've become difficult. And so this happens to all of us, you guys. But when we look at that list on any given day, we will look at certain ones we might have an encounter with that day or within the next, the near future. And we might be thinking, oh, Lord, I don't even want to have that meeting. I don't want to have that get together. I don't want them to come over. I don't know what I'm going to say. It's just going to be hard. Okay? Well, we want to talk about those people today. And I want to give you some thoughts out of Romans chapter 12. So turn your Bibles to Romans chapter 12. We're going to be in verse 9 and a few more verses into chapter 12 today. But I want to give you some ideas on what to do when you encounter a difficult person in your oikos, because you really want them to know the Lord. You want them to get over their difficulty. You want them to kind of move forward in their spiritual journey as well. And I know you do. It's just that you wish somebody else would be responsible to help them, right? Okay, well, someone else isn't. You are, so this is what we do. First of all, we have to make sure we go all in. We go all in. And what I mean by that is what the Apostle Paul said better than I could say it in verse 9 of Romans 12. Read that verse there. It says, love must be sincere, hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Now, we'll get to the hate what is evil and cling to what is good in a minute, but I want to just land for a second on that first phrase. Love must be sincere. Sincerity is one of the clearest evidences of being a Jesus follower. The word sincere, anapokritos, or not being a hypocritos, a hypocrite, It means without hypocrisy. It actually is a theatrical term in the ancient Greek world. They would describe an actor or an actress as someone who really wasn't who they seemed to be. And it was true in theater. I mean, you see somebody on stage and they're playing a role. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. Well, we're not talking to actors on a Oikos card unless they are vocationally actors. And you're not one unless you make your living in theater. You're a real person. There's authenticity that has to be part of this whole dialogue. How sincere are you? There are a lot of people in the world who claim to be sincere, and they're not. They're not all in. They want others to fit into their life easily. Jesus didn't like that in people, actually, if I can be so blunt. In fact, there was a group of guys that Jesus never seemed to get along with. He loved everybody, but he never got along with these hypocrites, otherwise known as Pharisees. Have you ever read through the Gospels? I mean, every time Jesus shows up with a Pharisee, you know there's going to be fireworks. I mean, they're always button heads. And the reason is because Jesus just didn't appreciate insincerity. And Pharisees were the poster children for insincerity. They were supposed to be loving and leading God's people, but all they did was expect things from people. They didn't care for the people, they just expected from the people. And maybe that's our problem. Maybe we expect more from the people on our Oikos card than we care for the people on our Oikos card. We expect people to act a certain way, live up to a certain standard. I mean, we have expectations. Well, why do you have those expectations? If you were honest, you might have to admit so your life would be easier, so you might not be hurt quite so often, so you could live more securely, more comfortably. That's why you have those expectations. And that was what defined Pharisees, or as we could use the term Phariseeism. That attitude was revealed by the Pharisee Jesus talked about in Luke chapter 18, verse 11, when he said, in reflecting a Pharisaic attitude, God, I thank you. I'm not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. Well, there are some things you don't want to do if you want to change your world, not because not doing them makes you a world changer, but not doing them makes you a better world changer if you've already taken a sincere approach to changing your world. Some things you just don't do, like be a thief, or do evil, or be an adulterer, or work for the government, evidently. I'm just teasing about that last one for the most part, but this is what Paul says, what he says. He says love has to be sincere, and then he says you have to hate evil and you have to cling to what is good. You have to hate evil, and this is fine. I mean, if there's evil out there, you want to shun evil. You want to separate yourselves to whatever degree in terms of your personal involvement from evil that you can. I mean, we're in the world, but we're certainly not supposed to be of the world. But he also said that we have to be balanced. Because whatever sin we are trying to manage, we have to do it without hypocrisy, without insincerity, without becoming Pharisees ourselves. I want to hate evil, but I don't want to be a Pharisee. Because it's like, lights out for those guys. So how do you do that? Well, the only way you can, in a non-Pharisaic manner, hate evil is to cling to what is good. You got to cling. This is a balancing act. In fact, you got to distribute your weight. I could do this much better when I was younger, but standing on one leg is hard. It's just hard for me. And after a while, I get tired, and if I insist on standing on one leg, I'm going to fall over. Now, I might be able to do that better on the other leg. I don't know. Let's see. No. I would look like a fallen person if I try to stand on one leg for very long. I'd fall over. Now, I might be able to do it for a while, but I will guarantee you this regardless of how long I can stand on one leg, I can stand on two legs much longer, with more stability, with more confidence. That's the point with hating what is evil and clinging to what is good. That gives you balance. Some of you just hate evil. And you're always, talking about how sinful individuals are, much like Jesus was referring to that Pharisee. Aren't you glad you're not a sinner like them? Because we hate sin. And that's fine. But eventually you're going to fall down. And you're going to not only become a Pharisee, you're going to take on what Jesus called the yoke of the Pharisees. And then the world, on the other hand, they don't hate evil. They just love good. That's the message they give us. They don't want to deal with the evil in the culture. They just want us to do good deeds. Doing good, I guess, for no good reason, because it obviously isn't changing the world. The world, while everybody champions, paying it forward and doing all these good deeds, which I'm not against. I'm all for that. We want to cling to what is good, but you have to do it at the same time you hate what is evil, or else you're out of balance. And you become a caricature of yourself. The word cling to what is good. Cling is from the Greek word for glue. You got to be glued to the good. Because if you don't tenaciously glue yourself to a righteous course, a good life, eventually you end up somewhere you don't want to be, and that's at an evil destination. It's interesting to me that the first step away from the good never seems all that bad, right? I mean, you just stop doing the good. You still hate the evil. You're just not doing the good. And it doesn't seem all that bad. But what that is the first step toward not hating the evil any longer. That's all it is. Some of you have stopped being glued to your spouse, clinging to your spouse. And even that doesn't seem bad because you're not in an illicit relationship. You're just not pursuing the good that God has given you in your husband or in your wife. I mean, after all, it's kind of a crazy world, and you're busy and you're pulled from so many different directions. So you don't cling to her, you don't cling to him. And eventually, what happens, you stop hating what is evil and you rationalize some type of other relationship that is actually just that, it's evil. You got to hold on to her. You got to cling to her. You got to manage that relationship. You got to pursue her. Or ladies, I say the same thing to you about your guys. Very important biblical principle that shows up later in the passage, and we'll end with this in a little while, but it's that good will always overcome evil. Always will. Good always wins the day. And so many of us just want to hate the evil but not pursue the good. Well, how are we going to overcome the evil? You really just want to sit around all the time and lament the evil in the culture? I got an idea. Why don't we change it? Why don't we overcome it? By doing what? Doing good. Clinging to what is good. Jesus said, I'm going to build my church. You know what that is? That's good. It's a good church. Jesus' church is a good church. And by building the good church, the gates of Fort Hades are coming down. Hell will fall because good always overcomes evil. Jesus could have completely avoided evil without ever showing up in Bethlehem. He could have just hated evil from heaven. But he didn't just want to hate it. He wanted to overcome it. And you know what that meant? He's going to have to show up and do good. And it was the good work on the cross, his sacrifice on Calvary, that provided now a new spiritual environment for those of us who were dead in our sin to know Christ, to come alive spiritually, to become part of the church that now is all about doing the good work of reconciliation as ambassadors of Christ. Jesus did not come to this earth to avoid evil. He came to this earth to engage the good, to pursue the ones he loved, to assault the gates of Hades. Verse 10, so be devoted to one another in love. I mean, if you're going to be sincere, you got to be devoted. Honor one another above yourselves. It doesn't mean that you think less of yourself. You can love your bad self for all I care. You should feel good about who you are and what God is doing in your life. It's not about thinking less of yourself. It's simply thinking of yourself less and start elevating the interests and the needs of others above you. Are you in or not? This is going to be hard work. You know, you get to sit here today and listen to the challenge, but this is nothing. I mean, as soon as you leave this building, the heavy lifting begins, because now you need to pursue good in order to overcome the evil in these difficult relational scenarios that you're a part of. Number two, you go all in, and number two, fire up, don't flame out. Fire up, don't flame out. Now, this is what I mean by that. Well, it's what Paul means by that. It's the Mercerized version of Romans chapter 12, verse 11, which says, never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Now, how many of us ever lose our zeal, right? We go all in, we say, Lord, we're in this for the long haul. We're going to love these people into the kingdom of God. We're going to overcome the difficulty by pursuing the good. And then we just get tired. I mean, it's just so hard. Time after time after time. It seems like you're beating your head against the wall because they're always coming back with a critical spirit, and they're cantankerous, and they're not cooperative, and they're just nasty. So how often are you allowed to take a break, right? Like never. Because you have to keep that spiritual fervor. Why you got to keep it up all the time? Because at some point, God is going to do something really great in their lives. I know this because they're on your card and you're praying for them all the time. And man, if you check out for a day, you check out for a week, you check out for a month, God may continue to do some great things, and then you're going to miss it. You got to keep focused, keep your eyes open all the time, because that's what it means to serve the Lord. Now, there's an interesting textual issue with this verse, and it all has to do with the word Lord. Now, the word Lord in the Greek is kurio, and it means Lord. But there's another word that looks very similar to kurio. It's kairo, not the city, but the opportunity. It means time or opportunity. Now, back in the day when they would kind of distribute these manuscripts, copies of these manuscripts, they would copy them by hand. And it would be easy to see in the Greek how some guy might actually copy that word down wrong, and somebody might read into the text something that was originally not intended. Now, the evidence is pretty clear that the word that should be there is the word that is translated in your English Bible, Lord. But there's enough evidence for the kairo option to at least keep the conversation interesting. But the fascinating thing to me is that both words fit. I mean, it is characteristic of serving the Lord by always keeping your focus and keeping, you know, that zeal, but it also serves a time or an opportunity that God may give you, and you'll miss that opportunity if you don't what? Keep your zeal, keep your fervor high. And then verse 12, look at verse 12. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Now, why hope? Why patience? Why prayer? Well, because number one, you're all in, so you got to have hope. See, you got to have hope. You're patient. Why are you patient? Because it's hard. I mean, this is hard work. Changing the world is not easy. And then why are you going to be praying all the time? Because it is so beyond you and me to affect miraculous change in so many of these relationships that we find problematic. I like a passage a few chapters back in chapter 8, verse 24. And this is what Paul says to the Romans there. He says, for in this hope we were saved. But hope that is seen is no hope at all. Who hopes for what they already have? But if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently. See, hope, patience, prayer. Now, why do I have this hope for those difficult people in your relational world? Because God brought them to you. This is not pie in the sky stuff. It's not like, I don't know, it's like a 1 in a million chance. I mean, none of this is by chance. There is no chance encounters. God has supernaturally, strategically brought them into your life. I know they're a pain, and that might be for a short season. This may go on for a while still. But we have hope. You say, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Well, that's why it's hope. If you saw it, you wouldn't need any hope. But because we have this confidence that God's doing something cool, we are patient with the people who are difficult. Zacchaeus, I love Zacchaeus, love the story of Zacchaeus. And in Luke 19, we read the story. And maybe you remember the guy is this short little thief, and he's involved in collecting taxes. And the text tells us he was a chief tax collector, which tells us that he was not only a tax collector, which was bad enough for the Jewish people. I mean, he was a sinner, and he was extracting money from, God's people to serve Caesar, this pagan, not only a ruler, but a guy who claimed to be God. I mean, how vile can this guy be, taking money from you and giving it to him? And now he's not just a tax collector, which would mean he had a relatively, small geographical area that he managed. He is a chief tax collector, which means now the region is much wider, and he's more capable of not only taking the money that Caesar demands, but get a little something for himself on the side. So now he's developing his own portfolio at the expense of all of these innocent Jewish people. Needless to say, nobody likes Zach. Nobody. That's why you read all the time about the Pharisees saying, as a tax collector. That's a chief tax collector if your name's Zacchaeus. But he shows up at the Jesus meeting. So I don't know why he came. He just shows up. Wouldn't that be a coincidence? By the way, there's no coincidence. I'll get to that in a minute. Climbs up in the tree because he can't see Jesus. He's a short guy. Jesus says, I'm coming to your house today. So Jesus goes over to Zacchaeus' house, which of course gets all of the people who hate evil in that particular community riled up, right? Because now Jesus is going to go have a meal with this sinner, this tax collector. You know what those people did? They hated evil, but they weren't interested in clinging to the good. Jesus comes, and he's not just about the truth, he's about grace. So he goes to dinner. Zacchaeus changes his ways. He says he's not only going to stop cheating people, he's going to pay them back. He's going to pay them back 4 times what he extracted unfairly from these people in this large region that this chief tax collector has managerial oversight of. I mean, amazing transformation took place in Zacchaeus' life. So that's the front story. I mean, that's what everybody reads. I want to know the backstory. And we don't know the backstory. I don't even know why he went to the Jesus meeting. But I'm going to speculate with you for a few minutes because I like to dig a little bit. And I recognize that virtually all of us came to Christ. We came to our Jesus meeting, whenever that was for you. We came to our Jesus meeting because somebody invited us, somebody who had our name on their oikos card, even if they didn't have an oikos card. They were declaring their faith to us and demonstrating their faith to us, and our life wasn't working. So we were, spinning our wheels. So eventually we made a connection, went to our Jesus meeting, gave our heart to Christ. So who was that for Zacchaeus? Well, not far from Jericho, where Zacchaeus lived, was another community called Bethany, just a few miles away. And in Bethany lived a very wealthy family, a family that you've heard of, and we read about on a number of occasions in the Gospels. And head of household was Lazarus. Remember Lazarus? Lazarus, 3 days later, he stinketh, and he raised from the dead by Jesus. He had 2 sisters. You remember their names? Mary and Martha. People of means, people in, might I say, a high tax bracket? Certainly because Zacchaeus, just living a few miles away, as the chief tax collector of that region, would have had connection with deep pockets Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, who had a friend that just happened to be coming through Jericho. I don't know. I just know it wasn't a chance engagement. It wasn't circumstantial. as much as it was strategic. And every one of us came to Christ. You can fill your name in the blank. Because somebody said, I'd like for you to meet my friend Jesus. And we did. Everybody's got a Zacchaeus on their Oikos card. You may have a slew of them. You may have several. And you know what you're thinking? Okay, I'll put them on my card, but there's no chance. You know, that's why you have hope. And that's why you're patient. And that's why you pray. Because if your Zacchaeus is on God's radar screen, it's just a matter of time. And they're coming in. Whether it's these doors or some other doors, they're going to hear the gospel and they're going to give their heart to Christ. Why do I have that confidence? Why do I have that hope? I have hope for your Zacchaeus more than you do. Well, for one reason, I don't have to live with them. But another reason is I've seen this over and over and over again, same scenario played out. That's why you need to hang in. Persistence is the key to victory. If you're all in, if you never lack zeal, you never lose your fervor, you know, persistence is the key. You're never defeated until you give up. Never. Never. In fact, you can measure how great you are as a world changer simply by asking this question: what does it take to discourage you? To stop praying for the Zacchaeus group on your card, or maybe to stop clinging to the good that you can do in order to encourage them in their faith. Remember, good always overcomes evil. Always. Sometimes it takes time, but good always wins. That's why you have to be good. I feel like Ricky Ricardo. I told you. What have I told you so many times? Most meaningless statistic in life is the halftime score. And the fact that your team is behind doesn't mean that they're going to go into the locker room, take off their helmets and their pads and go home and just forfeit the game. It means they're going to go into the locker room, they're going to listen to their coach, they're going to get their zeal and their fervor back. They're going to make the appropriate adjustments, they're going to strap on their helmet, they're going to go back out in the second half, and they're going to win the football game. And sometimes that's what this is. This is just a halftime talk. This is a pep talk. And what are you guys thinking? Because we need to play the next half differently. Okay, you guys, let's go out there and win one for the Gipper. Because the plan of redemption is all that matters. And when you get back out there on the field, here's number 3. Look out, don't lash out. Look out, don't lash out. Well, what does it mean to look out? Look at verse 13. Look at verse 13 so you can see what it means to look out. Share with the Lord's people who are in need, practice hospitality. Now, we talked about hospitality a couple of months ago, and so we'll leave that for another time. But sharing with the Lord's people who are in need. Watch this. Dropped right into the middle of this text about living and dealing with difficult people. Because you know what the difficult people in your life have? Needs. How you gonna meet them? How are you going to meet their needs? See, this is where doing the good comes in. Because when you decide you're just going to not hate the way they act, but you're actually going to do good, cling to the good that you can do for them to overcome this difficult relationship, that's going to take some money. That's going to take some time. That's going to take some focus. That's going to take some energy. Where are you going to get it? Because now you're going to have to share with these people who've got needs. There's a real great object lesson in the Middle East, in fact, in the nation of Israel, and it's been there as long as the Bible. It's still there today. It's the bodies of water that are there. You know, you've got the Mediterranean Sea out there to the west, but right in the north of Israel is what we call still the Sea of Galilee. And it's just a beautiful body of water. It's very alive. There's a lot of fish there. This is where Jesus and the disciples caught all their fish. And it's clear, it's clean. I went swimming there. I walked a good section of the shoreline. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful setting. And when you're there, you just feel the life. And springs Underground springs feed the Sea of Galilee, and then some streams and small rivers kind of feed that body of water. And then on the other side, on the south side of the Sea of Galilee, is where you have the opening of the Jordan River. And you've heard about the Jordan River and how even the nation of Israel, when they were going through the wilderness, had to cross the Jordan River in order to take this promised land, right? Well, the Jordan River flows from the Sea of Galilee down into what we still call the Dead Sea. And there's a reason why it's called the Dead Sea. It's dead. There is nothing alive in the Dead Sea. And the reason that nothing lives in the Dead Sea, we have this incredible accumulation of mineral content that flows downriver into the Dead Sea, and there's no outlet from the Dead Sea. So the water that goes into the Dead Sea accumulates all of these minerals. It's very oily. It's pretty yucky. Actually, there's some spas in the area. If you're into the mineral vibe, which I wasn't, I tried to swim in the Dead Sea. You really don't swim in the Dead Sea. You just float because you can't sink. It's an interesting feeling, just floating there. And all I'm saying is that there's no outlet, so all the water does is sit there and evaporate. So why do I share that with you? Because some of you are Dead Sea people. I mean, you just are. I don't even know your names. But everything you get is yours. Everything you get, you keep. Everything you get, you spend on yourselves. All of your energy, all of your focus, all of your time. It's all about you, me, 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 me. You're a Dead Sea person. And so all the blessings that God gives you, you know what they're doing? They're evaporating. Accomplishing absolutely nada. Then there are those of you who are Sea of Galilee people because God is blessing you. Stuff's flowing in, and what do you do with it? You let it flow out. God blesses you, you become a blessing to others. Now watch what God wants to do with the resources He provides you. Whether it's material resources, financial, energy, time, remember serving, the opportunity. I mean, we could go on and on about this. What does He want you to do with them? He wants you to share where there is a need. That's why He gave them to you in the first place. And what happens when you begin to share is your life becomes alive. You become productive. There is power. Your life is clean. It's attractive. It's not like yucky. But that's a choice we have. We want to share or not. Now, why? And you know, we could use scripture verses to describe sharing principles till the cows come home, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means, but we could do it for a long time. But this is my point. The reason I bring it up now is because Paul does. He drops this verse right in the middle of this context of difficult relationships. And then he says in verse 14, bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. You know how what do you feel like when people curse you? And I'm not talking about, blankety blank, 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 well, double blankety blank on you. I'm not even talking about profanity. You're cursed in a variety of ways. You're hurt all the time. You're offended all the time. People offend you. Everybody on that Oikos card has offended you, and they'll offend you in the future. I will offend you. And I don't even know you. But that's just the nature of life. And when we feel this sense that the world is against us, that they're against us, somehow they don't like me. They don't like me because they're always hurting me. And you're cursed by them. You don't get the job, you're cursed. You don't get the promotion, you're cursed. You don't get the date, you're cursed. They curse you. What do you feel like doing when people treat you that way? You feel like treating them back the same way. It's human nature, Okay, well, if you're going to act that way, then, two can play this game. If you get a blessing, you want to return a blessing. I mean, that's just our nature. We're out dinner with some friends the other day. They bought our dinner. That was a blessing. Our first response. Next time it's on us. And it will be. We want to bless when we're blessed. We want to curse when we're cursed. Problem is, now look down at verse 17. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Oh man, that messes up your whole plan. Because that's what people want to do. That's what our tendency is to do. If they curse, we curse. We'll double curse. Now the Jewish people were taught to never double curse. To show love when cursed in this manner. I actually call it faux love because it's phony love. When cursed, you respond with a curse, but it's that principle of exact retaliation, the eye for an eye principle. And it wasn't in order to give you license to retaliate. What the eye for an eye principle was to limit the retaliation. If you're cursed, don't double curse back. That's not right, because you got to love people. So only curse them back to the level that they cursed you. You know, we look at that and we say, hey, I can do that. I can do that. That's easy. And that's not going to change the world. That's not even love. That's phony love. Let's take it up a notch. Some of you guys wouldn't do faux love, but you got stew love. What's stew love? Well, when you're cursed, you internalize the curse. You're not going to say anything back. You're just going to kind of hold it. You're going to harbor that inside. And it kind of boils in there like, you know, a stew is just kind of simmering. And it never goes away. And you internalize it. And it's eating you alive, man. And you're just not moving forward because you're tethered by the curse, see? And what do when you're cursed? You hate that evil. Good, but you're gonna fall over if you don't keep going here. Let's go next level, slow love. When cursed, don't respond at all. Just consider the source. Not gonna respond. Just gonna keep my mouth shut, not gonna let it bother me. Well, that's fine. And when you keep your mouth shut, we've cut out half the noise. That's good. But we haven't changed the world, have we? Which is why you gotta take it up another notch. Almost love. When cursed, respond with a blessing. I mean, that's the point, right, Pastor Tom? I mean, when I'm cursed, now I'm not just going to hate the evil. Now I'm going to do something good. Now I'm going to cling to the good. Now I'm going to share what God gave me, let it flow out of my life. I'm going to share something in a good way, you know, so that we can overcome the evil, not just hate it. That's the point. Well, how come it's almost love, Tom? That don't make any sense to me. I thought that was the point. Well, understand something. You're getting close. You're almost there. But what, you guys, is true love? True love is when cursed, respond with a blessing for as long as it takes. As long as it takes. See, look at verse 18. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Now, consider that word far. As far as it depends on you. Now, I will tell you that I got people talking to me a lot in my vocation and a lot of relationships in play, a lot of conversations, a lot of counseling going on. And you see that line, as far as it depends on you. How many times have I heard, I'll answer the question, a lot. How many times have I heard people say, well, as far as it depends on me, the relationship, the difficulty in the relationship is over. I mean, if they want to continue to hold a grudge, but I've forgiven them. And I'm just going to go on my way. I've done my part. As far as it has depended on me, we're good. They just want to keep this thing alive, which is what made them difficult in the first place. So I'm just going to tell you what you're going to hear from me if you ever tell me that. So that might, you know, have you not tell me that, okay? So when you tell me that, I've done all I can do. I will respond this way. Really? You can't think of one more thing to do? I've done everything. Really? You've done everything? You can't send a card one more time. Well, I guess I could send one more card. You can't make one more phone call. You can't take some of the blessing God has given you and focus it on them, even one more time. Well, yeah, I could do it one more time, but wait. You told me you've done everything you could do, and now you just told me you can think of one more thing that you can do, which means if you can think of one more thing that you can do, you haven't done everything that you can do. That's what you're going to hear from me, so, you know, just stifle yourself. Because sometimes we're talking gibberish here. Do not take revenge, my dear friends. Leave room for God's wrath. Mine to avenge. I'll repay, says the Lord. Now, why is this verse important? For one reason. Watch this. Giving up on people is above your pay grade. There's only one person that has the right to give up on anybody, and that's God. That's what he says. I'll handle it. If anybody's going to give up on that guy, it will be me. And what would God say? I haven't given up on him. I haven't given up on her. I haven't given up on them. God didn't give up on you, did he? I mean, first, how many of you received Christ the very first time you heard the name Jesus? I didn't think so. Some of you guys went on and on and on. You were trying God's patience for like weeks, months, years. I mean, you gave God so many reasons to give up on you. Since you've been in the family of God, how many of you have tried God's patience? And the rest of you are lying. And God has not given up on you, man. God has not given up on you, sister. He's the only one who has the right to, and he hasn't. And you have no right to, and you have. What's wrong with this picture? See? On the contrary, verse 20. He's not done. I almost am, but Paul goes on and on and on. You think I'm long-winded? Holy mackerel, look at verse 20. On the contrary, if your enemy's hungry, what? If he's thirsty, what? And in doing this, you're going to heap burning coals on his head. Now, burning coals, this is funny. Burning coals was an ancient sign of penitence. People would actually walk around with hot coals on their head as a sign of, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I've been difficult, I'm going to change my way. My world is now going to change, which means your world is going to change. Now, I'm not after anybody putting burning coals on. I don't even want to think about doing that. I'm just saying that's what it meant to them. And that's Paul's way of saying they're going to come around. Because why? Why are they going to come? Because good always overcomes evil. Always, 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 always. And it will in your situation, but you can't give up because you're all in. And you're not going to lose your spiritual fervor, and you're not going to be lacking in zeal, because you're going to not only hate the difficulty in the relationship, but you're going to overcome it by doing good. Overcome it with good. Overcome it. I hear a lot of people, Pastor Tom, I'm going to get through this. I don't want to get through anything, actually. I want to overcome everything. And you can get through it without overcoming it. You don't want to just get through it. You want to beat it. You get through it, but more than that, you want to get over it so you can get on with it. You got a lot of living yet to do. And you know how long a grudge will last? This is what a grudge is. A grudge is hating the evil without doing good. You hate the evil and you stop. That's a grudge. And you know how long that's going to last? That's going to last until you overcome it or until you die, whichever comes first. And you got a lot of living left. So I suggest you get over it and get on with it. You know what I'm saying? All right, now if you drove to church today with the most difficult person in your life, it's going to be an interesting conversation going home. I just think that's a fact. So we want to proceed in great humility and let the Lord work in all of our lives. Father, thank you for giving us this chance today. Just bless our church family, Lord. Bless our immediate families. Bless our OIK families. Let us, Lord, be used by you to change the spiritual landscape in those communities that we orbit in. And yet there may be some today, Lord, that don't know you at all. And I pray that they would be thinking maybe less about changing the world than allowing you to change their life. And with everybody's head bowed and your eyes closed, maybe that's where you're at. Maybe you just need to give up. Maybe this is your Jesus meeting. Maybe this is your Zacchaeus moment. And you're sitting there in your little chair like he was sitting up in the tree, and Jesus has, in a compelling way, he has spoken to your heart, and it's time you just gave your life to him. ABC, admit that you're a sinner, believe he can save you, and choose to place your faith in him. It's what it takes. That's all it takes. And it has to be sincere, because he doesn't like insincerity. And he loves insincere people because he's loved you. But it's time to change that. Time to get focused. And you might just pray that God would not only save you today, but use you now. In Jesus' name. All God's children said, amen. You've said that a couple times today, which we appreciate. Welcome forms in the basket. We'll see you next week.